All right, I'm just going to select certain problems here that will just work to try to practice what we're doing and see where we're getting. All right. First off, I'd like you to do, this is page, what, 429. So let's start off with number 2. I'm going to put it up on the screen, but you have it right there in your book. You can just put your scratch paper right below the original and work right off of it. All right, you're to factor. All right, so that's what you're doing, you're factoring. Now, some of you may not get done, so I want to try to practice as many as I can here in the next couple minutes. All right, go ahead and factor that. If you're at home watching, you might want to pause. Okay, I'm going to pause you where you're at. Hopefully the first thing you did when you looked at this, you said, I'm going to factor out common factors first. It's got to be your first thought every single time. Hopefully you see a common 2. And hopefully you also see a common x. So we can get a 2x out. What's left? A 4xy cubed. Should have been blue there. Plus a 3y squared. And the last term is minus 1. And don't forget the 1. Why minus? Because of the minus sign. And then you took everything out for the 1. All right, be careful, because the first thing we learned is how to factor out common factors. And as you noticed, you have to be aware of them every single time you factor. What you got to be careful about tomorrow and on the test day Thursday is wasting a lot of time trying to factor that. Okay, that does not factor. At least I hope it doesn't. I'm going to try to give you ones where when all I'm after is seeing if you can factor out common factors, I'll try to make them so weird that you'd look at it and say, okay, that's it. That's all I had to do was take out common factors. But be careful, because normally that would be what? That's the first thing we learned. It might be in the beginning of your factoring. Past that, then look to keep going, but don't get caught up. Your book did say just factor out the common monomial, and that would have been the result. All right, let's go to something like number 8. Number 8. Number 8. All right, let me pause you for a moment. Hey, somebody tell me, why do students forget to factor out common factors first? Why do they forget that? Somebody raise your hand and tell me. Why do they forget? Eva? Because it doesn't happen all the time, and that's why they forget. Because you get to a problem like this, and there are none, right? But you got to check every time. You got to check, you got to check. And that's why students forget, because you don't always have common factors, but you checked. You should then say, hey, this is a trial and error problem. But not only that, this is a problem where the lead term gives you 2 possibilities. This could be 9t and t, or this could be 3t and 3t. Have you thought of both possibilities? How many factored it? You think you got it? How many of you? Oh, that's bad, because it factors. How many of you didn't get it, you thought of both possibilities? Let me see your hands. Okay, see, that's not everybody left. That's the problem. So you have to look at that lead coefficient. You have to recognize at times there are 2 possibilities and 2 different set of factors. All right, my mind, here's what I'm thinking. I'm not looking at the answer. Let me do the first one. I got a -8. So I have 8 and 1, 4 and 2. 4 times 9 is 30. 4 times 9 is 36. 8 times 9 is 72. None of those are going to get me to a 21. So those are out. How about the 2 and the 4? How about if the 2 is here? 2 times 9 is 18, but a 4 isn't going to get me to 21. That's not going to work. 1 times 9 is 9, and 9 and 8 is 17. That's not going to get me to 21. So it's looking to me like this 9 and the t isn't going to get me there. Is that right? Let me look through one other possibility. 8, 1. No. 8, nope. 1, nope. 2, 18, nope. 4, 36 and 2, nope. Let me go over to the next one. Again, I'm starting in the back. 3 times 8, 8, 16, 24, and 3. If I had 24 minus 3, won't that get me to 21? And what are the 21s? Positive. So I need the 24 to be positive and the 3 to be negative. And that's legal. A -1 times a +8 is a -8. Again, my check, outers, 24t, inners, -3t. Yes, that gets me my middle of +21t. That's the thought process. That's how you factor. You run through the possibilities in your head looking at the check, because the check is the key to the whole thing. The check is what you're doing. The check is in the mail. All right. How about, why don't you do for me 28? 28. 28. So again, hopefully test or quiz you have a little bit more time, but I'm trying to get as much reviewing as possible. So again, your first thought is always factor out common factors first. Oh, look at that common 5. What does that leave me? A b squared minus 10b plus 25. Now, most of you aren't going to recognize the perfect square trinomial, and that's okay. If you do, it's a little quicker, but most of you won't, and you're going to do 2 parentheses. The fronts have to multiply to b squared, b and b. Now, again, I've said this is the 3rd time today I've said this hint. The last term is positive, and the middle term is negative. The only way that can happen is if you do a negative times a negative. It's the only choice. Can't use a positive and a negative. Okay? So it's got to be a negative times a negative. So I've got 25, negative 25 and -1, or -5 and -5. And lo and behold, there's 5 negative b's and 5 more negative b's to give me my -10 b's. And Wes, did you finish it like that? All right. Awesome. All right. That would be a minor deduction if you don't finish it by the quantity square. Questions? Questions, anybody? Anybody questions? Okay. How about, let's do number 44. 44. 44. Makes me think of Icky Woods. All right. 44. Spike in his cold cuts. All right. Number 44. Oh, man. What nasty... Wait a minute. I don't know if I want to do 44. Hey, what would you try in 44? Yeah, I'm going to try a 9 into that 288 and a 9 into that 2304, right? And it works, thankfully. All right, so what do you get? X to the 4th minus, what's the middle? 32x squared plus, what do you get in the back? Okay, that's a little better. That's a little better. All right, so let's just do this one together. So when you see that trinomial, what are your thoughts? What method? Say it if you know it. Trial and error. So we're going 2 parentheses. Okay, watch. Stay with me on this. X to the 4th. Look at your middle. What does your middle have? An x squared. Do I want x cubed in x? That'll never give me an x squared in the middle. I got to use x squared. I have to. There's no other choice. Back number. I got to find something that gives me a difference of 32. Because it's 1x squared and 1x squared. So I don't know. You just got to start dividing 256 by numbers. I don't know. Divide it by maybe 8. What's 256 divided by 8? So it's 32. So 8 times 32 is 256. How about divide it by 6? What's 256 divided by 6? Okay, I'm going the wrong way. Divided by 12. Is it divided by 12? Does it divide by 14? What was the 8? Okay. How about 16? 16. And look, remember the hint. If this is positive and this is negative, the backs have to be negative and negative, right? Does that work? Negative 16, negative 16? Hey, would we quit? Keep going. Difference of 2 squares. Difference of 2 squares. Right? Ooh la la. 2 parentheses. Plus in the middle of one, minus in the middle of the other. Square root of the front in the front. Square root of the back in the back. All right, that's that one. And what's the second one? The exact same thing, right? You ready? Right? The exact same thing. Square each one. Again, you can do it the long way and plus in the middle one, minus in the middle of the other. All right, quiz tomorrow, test on Thursday. Get yourself ready. I showed you all the odd ones of the review that you can practice on if you're a wise student and if you're going to try to get prepared.